Hello and good morning, friends. Today I want to walk you through what is a B.A.T system? What does it stand for? What's NORWECO? How do they work? Let's get into it. All right, so let's talk about what is a B.A.T, right? So B.A.T stands for Best Available Technology. Originally, they would be referred to as ATUs, or Advanced Treatment Units. Now, that style is no longer used, and that's going to be basically for any house that's older than 2014, right? So what is it, you might be asking? Generally, with these systems, what they're trying to do is remove nitrogen from the water. And how it does that is by having aeration in the tank. So with a B.A.T, you'll almost always see some type of trash chamber, right, that collects everything in an anaerobic environment, just a big concrete box. And then you will always see an aeration portion. Now, some of these B.A.Ts might have two systems. Some might have three. Some will have four. It just depends on what type of unit you're working with and how that particular person decided that they wanted to build everything, right? So with this particular style, we're going to see that they have three distinct chambers on this tank. So you're going to have your trash chamber up front, aeration chamber in the middle, filter in the back. And so what'll happen is, as the water goes through, the aerator will actually bubble up and get the bacteria to remove most of the nitrogen from the water. This will help to improve the efficiency of the system. It will lower the risk of any debris getting into the drain fields, right? In our state, B.A.T units are required by law to be serviced at least once a year. Service is generally going to be cleaning the filters, the aerator, making sure the panel's working, making sure all the pieces are functional. Does not mean that they'll pump the tank, right? A lot of times with these systems, you'll see that the pumping frequency is actually far smaller than what you would see in an anaerobic system. And that's going to be because these bacteria that's growing, it will start to actually break down the solids a little bit more. NORWECO is the brand that's at this particular property. It's one of the ones that I like to work with. It's very easy to deal with. There's a little bit less parts, right? So there's less room for something to break, which means that in the long run, the homeowner's spending less money maintaining the system, right? So generally, where will you see these types of tanks? So in our area, you'll usually see them if you're within 1,000 foot of tidal water, terrible perk rate. Let's just say you have a ton of clay in your yard, high water table, or there was a select period of time when every new house in our state was getting one regardless of where they were. This particular property that I'm at now, it was built in that time period. So we're not in any of those classifications that would be called the critical area. So it just so happens that this house was built at the right time to require this type of system. So when you get these things serviced, it's very important to make sure that whatever your service provider does, they document in some way, shape, or form, right? So in our area, they are obligated, the contractor is obligated to report on your behalf to the state that they did XYZ on whatever date it was. If they don't, you as a homeowner can be held liable. So it's very important that whatever kind of information they give you, whether it be a flag or some kind of door hanger or a physical report, that you hold on to it just in case they don't do their job and report to the state what's going on. Now, why would you have to report that to the state, you might ask? Well, that's going to be because of the grant program, right? So there's a thing called the Bay Restoration Fund that will help to offset the cost of these systems, so that way homeowners aren't spending as much money putting them in. This system costs $65,000. That's a lot of money, right? So that program exists to help knock that cost down, but because the state's giving you some of that money, they want to make sure that the equipment that you're receiving for either a substantial discount or for free, you're taken care of. And that's why they make it to where you have to have a licensed provider take care of the system. In our state, you have to be manufacturer certified, not just regular installer or a regular inspector. You have to be from that particular company's manufacturer certification to touch and work on that system, right? So let's go ahead, look at the exact tank, and I'll show you kind of what I'm talking about. So on a B.A.T, a lot of times you're going to see a control panel just like this. Now, for NORWECO specifically, you're going to see one of these when there's not an ejector pump on the system. So this is basically only going to be for the aerator. So if that light is red, that means that there's an issue with the aerator. You can press the blue button to reset it. Inside, it'll also have lights to help indicate what might potentially be going on. And the first thing to always check is their power. If you run into an issue, you can always turn off the switch by pressing that little black button down. These systems generally will have an alarm to let you know, but it's honestly not very loud. So if it ever does go off, you kind of have to be standing relatively close to it or doing something outside before you hear it. If you hear the alarm going off, you want to make sure you call your service provider and get that addressed ASAP. Alrighty, so what we're looking at right now is a NORWECO BAT. We have trash chamber here, aeration chamber there, filter chamber over here. Let's get into exactly what's going on. So right here is our manhole riser, right? We can see that we have a square concrete ring that's put right on top of the tank. This black gasket, that's going to help to prevent any of the groundwater from getting into the tank and potentially causing issues. With these systems, it's very important to make sure that you have very limited external water going into the tank. The reason why, that filter can clog up and you can run into some problems. So this is going to function just like your normal septic tank. This is called the trash chamber. So what'll happen is every time you flush a toilet, run a sink, bathtub, you name it, all that good stuff goes into here. Solids will stay here, and that baffle will prevent all that floating stuff, that scum, from getting into the aeration chamber. From there, we have this little fella. This is our aerator. So basically, what'll happen is every hour, this will turn on and this will blow air into the tank. So what's happening is this is going to get the bacteria in the tank to propagate, which is going to break down the nitrogen in the system. These systems are designed to remove nitrates and nitrogen from the water to help with the environment and prevent algal blooms or any kind of disturbance to the bay. So this pump is usually where you're going to run into some problems. Anything mechanical does run into issues eventually. The motor will eventually go bad and you have to replace it. Generally in our area, you'll see these run anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 depending on who puts it in. The average life expectancy is roughly 7 to 10 years, give or take. Sometimes people will sell used ones. I usually recommend to stick with a new one because the new one will come with warranties. So what will happen is, as water goes into the trash chamber, the water will eventually work its way over into here. This thing will blow every hour, like I said, and then the water will move on into the filter. This filter is going to be about 5 feet tall, give or take, and this is going to catch any of the particulates that are floating. So if we look, we can see how clear that water is compared to the water over here. So by the trash chamber filtering out by just gravity letting everything fall, the aeration chamber getting the pump to get the bacteria to grow, and this filter catching all the other particulates, you're able to significantly reduce the amount of debris working its way into the drain fields. From there, the water will then transit on into the distribution box. So let's go ahead, walk over there and take a look, see what that is. All right, so now we're looking at the distribution box. So these little fellas, they come in a variety of shapes and sizes. This particular one has a PVC clean out as its observation port. We can see here that we have our inlet line where water comes into the box. And then we're gonna have our drain field lines, each of these three. We can see here that we have these yellow speed levelers. These are designed so that way you can make the water dissipate evenly into all three of these drain fields. Or, for example, if we see that one of the drain fields is getting more water than the other, and this one fails, what you can do is you can put that hole to the 12 o'clock position and make it to where these other drain fields pick up the slack. This is very common on most modern installations. Nowadays, though, you're going to see a slightly larger box with a manhole-sized lid instead of the little 4-inch pipe right over here. From there, the water will then go into the drain fields, which will have observation ports. As long as everything's flowing correctly, it should all be dry. There should be no stagnant water or any kind of backups into the box. Now that we've looked inside the distribution box, we need to understand a little bit more about what are drain fields and how do they work. So a drain field is basically like a French drain, right? So in this particular setup, it's going to be 3 feet wide, 6 feet deep, 80 feet long. And so what'll happen is they'll dig that trench and then they'll run a perforated pipe into some stone. They backfill that whole thing with stone in the perforated pipe, and then they're going to backfill it with soil. So what'll happen is the water will come to that distribution box, and then it will go into those drain field lines, which we just looked at with the speed levelers. And then what'll happen is the beginning of the trench will be used first, right? And then the soil is going to be your filtering media. So the water will go from the distribution box into the drain field line, into the surrounding soil. The soil was what's going to capture all the bacteria, and then nature's cycle is going to repeat itself, right? It's just going to go off into the rest of the world. As drain fields age, they're going to start to hold more and more and more water until eventually it backs up to the distribution box. For this particular property, the septic tank is far higher uphill than the distribution box is. So more than likely how they would notice that their system's no longer functional is that the distribution box will actually have a lot of water bubbling up around it and downhill. So it's a benefit to where they don't really have to worry about the water going back to the home on a failure, but it's a negative where they're more likely to have sewage surfacing in their yard, which is kind of yucky, right? So now we've gone through all of this system. Leave a comment below. Tell me, do you have an advanced treatment unit at your house? Do you have a B.A.T? What type of tank do you have on your system? I'm really curious. Leave a comment below. If you enjoy conversations like this, I post content every day on the World of Well and Septic. Please hit that like button, subscribe. I look forward to our conversation. Till next time, guys.